Ever wondered how scandalous a man's life can be in the 18th century? Well, buckle up as we dive into the life of Giacomo Casanova. Giacomo Casanova, born in the Venice Republic, was a man of many faces. A lawyer, a clergyman, a soldier, a violinist, a spy, and a diplomat. But let's be honest, these were just his day jobs. When night fell, Casanova transformed into a legendary libertine, an unrivaled womanizer whose name is still synonymous with seduction more than 2 centuries after his death. Casanova lived in an era of powdered wigs, corsets, and a time when Venice was the pleasure capital of Europe. His escapades were so scandalous, so audacious, that they would make even the most seasoned reality TV producers blush. His reputation for scandal was so profound that his name, Casanova, has become a byword for a charismatic, smooth-talking lover. Casanova, a name synonymous with scandal. But how did it all begin? Casanova's journey to notoriety began in Venice, Italy in 1725. Born to 2 theater actors, Giacomo Casanova was the first of 6 children. Now, if you're imagining a childhood filled with drama and theatrics, you're not far off. He was exposed to the world of theater from a tender age, which probably explains his flair for the dramatic in his later life. But his parents' untimely demise led him to be raised by his grandmother. Under her guidance, Casanova developed an early inclination towards religious life. Yes, you heard it right. The man who would later become synonymous with seduction and scandal once considered becoming a priest. He was even enrolled in a seminary, with dreams of a quiet, devout life. But, as fate would have it, the seminary's peaceful corridors and solemn hymns were not enough to contain Casanova's vibrant spirit. He was more drawn to the world outside, filled with allure and excitement. But the young Casanova soon found the religious life a bit too tame for his taste. Casanova's first scandal came early, and it set the tone for the rest of his life. Ah, the audacious charm of youth. Barely out of his teens, our young Casanova had already established a reputation that would make even the most seasoned rakes blush. Assigned to a seminary for his education, Casanova was expected to be a beacon of virtue and piety. But he had other plans. An incorrigible flirt, Casanova found his way into the hearts, or rather the boudoirs, of numerous ladies, causing quite the uproar amongst the clergy. The young man's scandalous affairs eventually led to his dismissal from the seminary. The clergy must have been so disappointed. After all, the church loves a good redemption story. But Casanova wasn't done stirring the pot. His passion for pleasure didn't just extend to the ladies, it also extended to lavish lifestyles and extravagant spending. This, unsurprisingly, led him into a world of debt. And not the kind you can simply pay off by washing dishes or selling lemonade. No, Casanova was in deep. So deep that he was arrested and imprisoned. Now I know what you're thinking. A bright young man with a promising future now behind bars, what a tragedy. But for Casanova, this was merely a minor setback. You see, Casanova was not one to be confined by society's norms, or in this case, literal confinement. With a dash of his signature charm and wit, he managed to sweet-talk his way out of prison. And so, fresh out of prison and seemingly unscathed by his early scandals, Casanova was ready to embark on the next chapter of his scandalous life. Little did he know, his escapades had only just begun. The world was his oyster, and he was just about to take a big, juicy bite. But for Casanova, this was just the beginning. With a taste for scandal, Casanova set out on his grand tour of Europe. This was not your average sightseeing trip. Oh no, it was a whirlwind of grandeur, romance, and yes, lots and lots of scandal. Casanova's journey took him through the heart of Europe, from his native Venice to the bustling streets of Paris, the grand palaces of London, and even the distant corners of Russia. Every city was a new adventure, a new chapter in his scandalous tale. In Paris, he was not just another tourist. He was a charmer, a seducer, a man who could make the nobility swoon. He had affairs with countesses, duchesses, even a few princesses. His charm was irresistible, his wit unmatched. He was the talk of the town, the man everyone wanted to know, and the man everyone wanted to be. But Casanova wasn't just about the ladies. He also had a knack for getting involved in all sorts of shenanigans. He was a gambler, a duelist, a spy, and even a bit of a con artist. He could talk his way into any situation, and more importantly, he could talk his way out of any scandal. His escapades took him to the courts of kings and queens, where he charmed and scandalized in equal measure. He was a regular at the most exclusive parties, rubbing shoulders with the upper crust of society. He was a man of many faces, a man who could be anyone he wanted to be. But for all his charm and wit, Casanova was not without his flaws. His reckless lifestyle often landed him in hot water, and his countless affairs earned him more than a few enemies. But did he care? Not one bit. He reveled in the scandal, thrived on the drama, and lived his life with a devil-may-care attitude. Casanova left a trail of scandal across Europe, but his biggest scandal was yet to come. And trust me, it's a doozy. But that, dear listeners, is a story for another time. For now, let's just say that Casanova's grand tour was anything but ordinary. It was a journey of passion, intrigue, and above all, scandal. Casanova's most scandalous act landed him in the infamous Leeds prison. Now you might be pondering, what could a serial heartbreaker possibly do to merit incarceration? As it turned out, Casanova was no stranger to controversy and intrigue, but this time he bit off more than he could chew. He found himself arrested for witchcraft. Yes, you heard that right. Our Casanova, the irresistible charmer of ladies, was accused of dabbling in the dark arts, a practice viewed as a taboo in 18th century Venice. His flamboyant lifestyle and reputation for scandal had finally caught up with him. The local authorities, tired of his antics, tossed him into the Leeds prison, notorious for its harsh conditions. But if you believe that this was the end of his infamous escapades, you're in for a surprise. Casanova saw the situation as an opportunity rather than a setback. He spent his days in prison chipping away at the ceiling of his cell with a small, sharp stone. After months of grueling work, he finally made a hole big enough to squeeze through. On a starless night, our daring protagonist made move. He climbed through the hole, traversed the leaden roofs of the prison, and lowered himself down using a rope made from bedsheets. Quite a dramatic exit, wouldn't you agree? After his daring escape, Casanova penned down his memoirs, a manuscript filled with tales of his exploits, including his shocking arrest and thrilling prison break. These memoirs, filled with salacious details and flamboyant exploits, were initially banned by the Catholic Church until after his death, but they later became a sensation, solidifying his reputation as an adventurous libertine and a scandalous rogue. In a sense, Casanova's life was like one of his many love affairs. It was filled with passion, drama, and scandal, but ultimately it ended in an escape. His memoirs were his final love letter to the world, a testament to a life lived on his own terms, no matter the consequences. Casanova escaped his prison, but he could never escape his reputation. After all, once a scandalous rogue, always a scandalous rogue. In his later years, Casanova tried to outrun his scandalous past. Now there's a sentence you probably never thought you'd hear, but it's true. After a lifetime of adventure, scandal, and more than a few close calls, our friend Giacomo decided it was high time to trade in his roguish ways for a life of respectability. And so, he turned to a career path that for him was the epitome of respectability: espionage. Yes, it seems that even in his quest for a more dignified existence, Casanova couldn't resist a little bit of intrigue. He served as a spy for the Venetian inquisitors of state, a role that was as cloaked in secrecy as his previous escapades. But, as with all things Casanova, even this venture was short-lived. Eventually, he found himself in the role of a librarian in the service of Count Joseph Karl von Waldstein, a Bohemian nobleman. Now, if you're picturing Casanova shushing noisy patrons or organizing bookshelves, you're not alone. But while it may not have been as exciting as his earlier exploits, this quiet life gave him time to reflect and, more importantly, to write. And write he did. He penned his memoirs, recounting his scandalous adventures in vivid detail. His death in 1798 was as uneventful as his life had been extraordinary, but the legacy he left behind was anything but ordinary. His memoirs painted a vivid picture of life in the 18th century, offering an unfiltered look at the decadence and debauchery that lay beneath the surface of polite society. And let's not forget his reputation as a legendary lover, which has made his name synonymous with seduction. So, while Casanova may have sought respectability in his later years, it's the scandalous tales from his youth that have endured. Casanova may have died, but his legacy of scandal lives on, reminding us that life in the 18th century wasn't as prim and proper as we might think. Having journeyed through the life of the infamous Casanova, we're left with a legacy that's as scandalous as it is intriguing. This charismatic individual, with his insatiable lust for life, left an indelible mark on history, forever changing our perception of the 18th century. His memoirs serve as a testament to his audacious adventures, providing us a window into the decadence and debauchery that lurked beneath the veneer of polite society. Casanova's escapades may have been scandalous, but they were undeniably fascinating. His name has become synonymous with seduction, and his life story continues to captivate us centuries later. In the end, Casanova may not have achieved the respectability he sought in his later years, but he certainly achieved immortality through his timeless memoirs. So, while we may never fully understand the enigma that was Casanova, we can appreciate the vibrant tapestry of life he left behind. If you enjoyed this scandalous journey through Casanova's life, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more juicy historical gossip.